Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? Hope everyone had a good evening. Had a great time yesterday. That was fun. Finally getting to sit down and play some video games for a minute. That came out okay. Well, that's good, Lee. Yeah, I mean, for context, it used a lot of filament, like a lot of filament. My head for scale. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Good morning, Zeno. So far. I already got I got 2 customer calls this morning already. Hi, Emily. Nice. Alright, how's everybody doing? Yeah. Just waking up this morning, Em. How you doing, Let Us Repair? Good, Emily. Hello. I'll be right up there. It was not double XP, no. It was fun. We still had a great time playing. That's fine, man. No, that at no point had any effect on anything anyone did yesterday, so perfectly fine. Well, I got a couple computers that I want to poke at. I have some IT stuff I need to do. Amongst other things. Um, it was a mixed bag. It would have been better if I didn't die twice and then had to relocate my base. But here we are. Yeah, it's fine. I did it to myself. Good morning, Arnold. How are you? I always find it fun when people think they know something and they're like adamant about it, and then I correct them and they're like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "You were saying completely the wrong thing." Yep. Good morning, Ramrod. Thank you, Emily. Yeah. She's like, "This is my Earl," and I'm like, is your name Earl? And she's like, "No, it's the thing. It's my web address." I mean, and I'm like, "Earl, so what is your email address?" And she's like, my Earl is this email address." I'm like, "Okay, how do you spell Earl? URL." I'm like, URL is already like it's a little acronym for uniform resource location. And she was like, what?" I'm like, "Stop saying Earl. It's URL. An email address is not an Earl." But old. Gotta go change the old today. I don't know if I need this section in this video. Let you guys listen to this. I was tempted to play, like, right now I've been listening to the WAN show this morning. I've been tempted to listen to that with you guys this morning, because one of the things they're talking about is the guy that in Italy that is probably going to get jail time for owning and reviewing some of the Ambernick devices. Make for this. One caveat to this is, if you're looking to get into the AI space and you're trying to figure out how all of that works,
if you have a much larger build budget for the rest of your computer, getting 2 or 3 of these cards and putting them into the same computer and just ripping out AI stuff, the TI variant or any, really realistically, any card that has more memory than the 8 gig cards. So just keep that in mind.
I think I'm gonna.
So honestly, if you're already in this space, then there's a good chance you're already spending another choice that I can honestly make for this. So honestly, if you're already in this space,
I'm gonna get
then
rid
there's
of
a
this
good
whole
chance
thing.
you're already spending way more money on video cards than the 3060 and the 3060 Ti. So this is kind of a moot point. But if you are in the middle space where you have some knowledge and you're looking to expand your AI card selection, then the 3060 and the 3060 Ti variants, they're going to be the way to go for sure. So overall, this card comes in 5th place based on all of the scores and just overall costs and everything, which, I mean, it's not really a big surprise. We're talking about the oldest card based on all of the scores. Then the 3060 and the 3060 Ti variants, they're going to be the way to go for sure. So overall, this card comes in 5th place based on all of.
Yeah, I just cut out a whole section of this video. It just didn't make sense. Okay, man.
Already developed driver and video game support out there. They work very well with AI image generation. And if your overall build is going to be under $800, like, there really is not another choice that I can honestly make for this. So overall, this card comes in 5th place based on all of the scores and just overall costs and everything, which, I mean, it's not really a big surprise. We're talking about the oldest card, the least expensive card. And like I said, if your budget is under $800, it's a good way to go. So next, I tested the Intel Arc B580 12 gigabyte, which we picked up for $325. And boy, was the immaturity of this card apparent. It performs solidly across almost all of the synthetic tests, but when you actually start playing newly released games, some of the shortcomings of this card become apparent, which it's one of those things where, you know, the longer that this card is available and out in the public, you're going to get better and better driver support just across the board, and performance overall will improve. Perfect example is when we get into some of the actual real-world testing. That increased overall in-game performance by about 10%. So let's start with our synthetic benchmarking. In Steel Nomad, we got an average score of 3057, which is 2nd on our list. In Time Spy, the average score was 21225, with an average FPS of 142, which is up in 1st on this list. That is again an indication of the fact that this card has more memory and is more modern than some of these other cards. In actual in-game benchmarking, Cyberpunk 2077 with RT off, we got an average FPS of 105, which is good for 2nd place. But as soon as you turn frame gen and RT off, this card falls all the way down to 70 FPS, which is 2nd to last. XESS is good, but in a game, got an average FPS of 105, which is good for 2nd place. But as soon as you turn frame gen and RT off, this card falls all the way down to 70 FPS. As you turn frame gen and RT off, this card falls all the way down to 70 FPS, which is 2nd to last. Which is 2nd to last. XESS is good, but in a game that XESS is good, But in a game that is designed around NVIDIA's upscaling and frame gen model, you can really see where this game just kind of struggles. So in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the B580 shines once again. It's an older title that uses video memory to handle just about everything, so more memory is more gooder. And we see 192 FPS for second place finish. In Black Myth Wukong with RT off and no frame gen, the B580 comes in dead last. I was expecting the B580 to have issue with some of the more modern titles, but Intel has had time to work on this and release drivers. This game's been out for a little bit now, so I was hoping to see better numbers across the board. So we see an average of 58 FPS with lows down at 52. Then once we turn frame gen and RT on, there is no massive bump in performance, which keeps the card in dead last with an average of 62 FPS with lows of 54 FPS. The window between those two FPS is kind of narrow though, which is somewhat nice. You're still going to average across the board under 60 FPS, but you're not going to see super low. Like I would say, out of all of the cards in Dune Awakening, performed the worst. That being said, they released a driver update the next day that brought FPS and just overall stability up significantly. And if you go online, this is 120, which is outstanding. It's the highest FPS total we scored with all of the cards, but the lows in this were at 31, which if you're actively playing this game and you're averaging, let's say, a smooth 60 FPS, and suddenly your frame rate is dropped in half, you're going to feel that, and it's going to be like, oh, what just happened? Again, this comes down to a maturity issue. I feel like the longer this card exists, the more you're going to see less and less titles have that problem. So let's talk about the AI stuff. This card potentially will be great once the support gets there, but right now it is not compatible with Stability Matrix, and you have to install a specific tool from Intel plus a bunch of plugins just to get it to work. And sure, it can do it, but with the amount of video memory that this has, at some point, once this card becomes like more of a mainstream thing, availability becomes higher and the prices start to settle on them, and we start to see companies do crazy things because Intel's letting people do whatever they want with this card, like putting 2 GPUs on a single card, you're going to see support for this card come way up in the AI space, and you're going to see this card be possibly one of the best non-90 series cards for doing AI stuff. Because when you can toss 2 CUDA cores, because when you can toss 2 GPUs and a bunch of jarring and taking you out of the experience of what you're doing. In Red Dead Redemption 2, we are seeing the and taking you out of the experience of what you're doing. In Red Dead Redemption 2, we are seeing the Jekyll and Hyde That is this card. With everything else that this card has to offer, I am really with everything else that this card has to offer, I am really seeing the potential and also the drawbacks of this card. So the average FPS that is this card. With everything else that this card has to offer, I am really seeing card. With everything else that this card has to offer, I am really seeing the potential and also the drawbacks of this card. So the average FPS is 120, which is outstanding. It's the highest FPS total we scored with all of the cards, but the lows in this were at 31, which if you're actively playing this game and you're averaging, let's say, a smooth 60 FPS, and suddenly your frame rate is dropped in half, you're going to feel that, and it's going to be like, oh, what just happened? Again, this comes down to a maturity issue. I feel like the longer this card exists, the more you're going to see less and less titles have that problem. So let's talk about the AI stuff. This card potentially will be great once the support gets there. But right now, it is not compatible with Stability Matrix, and you have to install a specific tool from Intel plus a bunch of get it to work. And sure, it can do it. A memory that you have to install a specific tool from Intel plus a bunch of plugins just to get it to work. And sure, it can do it, but with the amount of video memory that this has, at some point, once this card becomes like more of a mainstream thing, availability becomes higher and the prices start to settle on them, and we start to see companies do crazy things because Intel's letting people do whatever they want with this card, like putting 2 GPUs on a single card, you're going to see support for this card come way up in the AI space, and you're going to see this card be possibly one of the best non-90 series cards for doing AI stuff, because when you can toss 2 CUDA cores,
Okay, Emily.
because when you can toss 2 GPU AI stuff, because when you can toss 2 CUDA cores, because when you can toss 2 GPUs doing AI stuff, because when you can toss 2 GPUs and a bunch of memory at a process in a single PCI slot, companies are going to go wild for that. So unfortunately, because of that, this card scored a DNF in the AI stuff. So moving on to Dune Awakening. This was my experience actively. Because of that, this card scored a DNF in the AI stuff. So moving on to Dune Awakening. This was my experience actively playing on this card for the first time. I had one of the A770 cards that I ended up selling to a customer after putting it in a build and doing some benchmarking with it. On this
Okay.
Scored a DNF in the AI stuff. So moving on to Dune Awakening. This was my experience actively playing on this card for the first time. I had one of the A770 cards that I ended up selling to a customer after putting it in a build and doing some benchmarking with it, but I never got a real large amount of time to sit and play with the card on the card in an actual game. Which leads me to saying, when a game first comes out, you're really going to have a kind of a mixed bag experience with this card. There are moments where you can clearly see how much better this card can be. The overall visual fidelity is better. The frame rates are much higher. But then, out of nowhere, you'll be slapped in the face where the game gets super choppy and borderline unplayable for moments. And then you'll get these weird visual lighting artifacts that just pop up that have existed since the A770. Like, I believe Halo was the first game, Halo Infinite was the first game where those artifacts really started showing just up everywhere. But at the same time, I want to say that it is an immaturity thing with this card and how they handle lighting, but they should have had enough time by now to gotten that figured out. Maybe it's just an underlying issue that they have to work with developers on to get sorted. But overall, this card, like I would say, out of all of the cards in Dune Awakening, performed the worst. That being said, they released a driver update the next day that brought FPS and just overall stability up significantly. And if you go online, you can find a lot of details about that. People are just raving about the card now. So all of the cards in Dune Awakening performed the worst. You have to work with developers on to get sorted. But overall, this card, like I would say, out of all of the that they have to work with developers on to get sorted. But overall, this card, like I would say, out of all of the cards in Dune Awakening performed the worst. Get sorted, but overall, this card, like I would say, out of all of the cards in Dune Awakening performed the worst. That being said, they released a driver update the next day that brought FPS and just overall stability up significantly. And if you go online, you can that brought FPS and just overall stability up significantly. And if you go online, you can find a lot of details about that. People are just raving about the card now. So your experience definitely will vary. And when a game comes out and that technology pipeline starts flowing better with Intel, you're going to see less and less problems. And you're going to enjoy having this card more and more in your rig. The price to performance value for this card was 92%, which out of all the cards we tested was second. It has the most RAM, some of the highest benchmark scores, and is priced under the 5060. So it's really hard not to recommend this card as like the one to buy on this list out of all of the cards that we tested. But right now, people always talk about the insecurity of future versions of this card, or the C series of this card. I'm not worried about that so much. What I'm worried about is Intel's shrinking worker base and Intel shrinking the amount of people that are readily available to work on driver updates for this card. So I can't, in good conscience, put this as the first place card. Second place, though, no problem with that. If you can get the B580 for MSRP, it's a solid card. There's a lot of catch-up that Intel still does need to play, but you can just see the potential. My hope is that in a few years we have Team Red, Team Green, and Team Blue all competing for the same space, roughly at the same price points, which is the Intel price points, not the which is the Intel price points, not the NVIDIA, not the price points, the NVIDIA price point. Price points, not the NVIDIA price points, but I also want $1 billion to start fixing all the problems in the world, and that's just not going to happen. So for now, on this list, this card gets put in third place. Third place. The highs really do balance out the lows, and it really, really keeps this card in the middle of the pack with potential in the future for it to be a much higher rated card. So next, let's talk about 4060 Ti. In my mind, going into all of this testing, this is going to be the card that, at the end of the day, I'm going to recommend this card. It is not the newest. It is less cheap than the new version of the card with the same performance and the same features. So that being said, I am expecting this card to perform at the absolute top of the list, across the table, on all of my tests, real world and synthetic. So in Steel Nomad, we have an average score of 2977, which is good for second place. And in Time Spy, the average score is 21221, with an average FPS of 142 which is second only behind the B580, which again, memory thing. I was really expecting in these synthetic benchmarks, both of them to be at the top of the list, but they're not. So I'm thinking the fact that this is just an 8-gig card is what's holding those scores back, not the fact that it's, you know, a TI variant. In Cyberpunk 2077, with ray tracing off, we're at 96 FPS, which is all the way down in 4th. But as soon as you turn frame gen and ray tracing on, this card shoots up to 1st, which is what I was expecting. Which, again, shows that while the base performance of the card, being only an 8-gig card, is hampered by that, once you turn the technologies on that NVIDIA has developed, card performs much better. So in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 4060 Ti is all the way...
Hello. I'm going to say this once, and it's going to suck. That is going to be a absolute nightmare. There's mold growing in that loop. It's a custom main gear loop. And that's a very, very expensive computer. That's a main gear. So main gear does like super high-end, custom stuff. Because like this is probably, let's see, yeah, it's a version of this. But don't worry. When I actually get it on camera, you'll see. It has black mold growing in it. That was pretty bad. There's a lot of water loss in there for some reason. Yeah, parts washer. Hey. Just wanted to see if you wanted to get up and start your day. Huh? No, why not? I see. What time did you go to bed? I see. Okay, don't forget the dogs have not been out today. I told you this. Like, I actually, like, woke you up and I told you. Okay? Alright, well, talk to you later. I love you. Bye.
way out in first with 196 FPS, which is contradictory to more memory equals more gooder in this specific situation, which again I think comes down to the developer working closely with NVIDIA to optimize for these cards. In Black Myth Wukong with ray tracing off and no frame gen, second place, we're seeing 102 FPS average with lows of 67. Once you turn everything back on and set everything to the recommended settings, we drop all the way down to 67 FPS and 52 FPS lows. I am perplexed by the performance of this card, given that this card and this game were developed basically side by side, because Black Myth Wukong was supposed to be this showcase of what NVIDIA cards can do, and not doing so hot. In Red Dead Redemption 2, the 4060 Ti is in third place now with an average of 100 FPS and lows of 45, which, again, is not making much sense. All of these cards are tested with, again, same settings, same computer in every single game. Only thing that's different is the manufacturer of the card or the variant of the card. Now, this is where I think this card really, really shines, which is in AI workloads. When you compare this to not only some of the more modern cards, but cards that are potentially in a price tier above this, the 4060 Ti is kind of crushing it. Literally, all of the other cards are behind this card,
sometimes.
whether they have more memory or not. So our 10 batches of 6 images took an average of 174 seconds with 2.264 iterations per second, which is crazy. My 3090 is averaging 2.75 iterations per second. Granted, my speeds are much, much lower, averaging around 80 seconds, but the iterations per second that this GPU can put out is pretty good, which means that if you can get this same variant of the card with more memory, you're going to have a pretty good time with this card in the AI workloads. For under $350 though, 100% this is the card to buy. If your budget is $350, you have that $350 for AI stuff, buy this card. There's no other card on this list I can recommend for that. But if you can find a 4070 or a 4070 Ti or a 4070 Ti Super, obviously, if you can find them at that price, buy that. That would be technology, memory, it all comes together. With the higher up you get with these cards, you just end up with a better experience overall. In Dune Awakening, if you
They see me munching, they hungry.
actually asked me, like, life or death situation, what video card are you playing on? Which NVIDIA card are you playing on? Is it the 3060, the 4060 Ti, or the 5060? I honestly couldn't tell you. Sure, the FPS counter that was in the corner of the screen told me that I was getting more FPS, but no hiccups, no weird artifacting, no stutters. It's almost as if this game was designed around this card, quite possibly, not the 50 series card. Just a smooth experience through and through. Price to performance for this card, 93%, which is, out of all the cards, is the highest on this list. Sure, it has less RAM than the B580, costs $5 more, but overall, if you're looking for a card that just works and doesn't get in your way with literally anything you're doing, this is it. This is the card you buy. Is what I would have said if this card actually didn't come in second place. Who knew that you can basically end up in a situation where you're the most recent generation of card other than what is current, but literally you're so up and down across the board with all the tests that it just doesn't make sense. And like, there's a stability issue somewhere that you can't really put your finger on, and it's not the rest of the system.
I love when there's one of the subreddits I'm on is all about like close-up magic, And literally everyone's answer to everything, like, how did this person do this? Magnets. We don't understand them. Neither do you.
Of the system. So now we have the antagonist of this video, the whole reason I started making this video in the first place, which was the 5060. And right out of the gate, I bought this card as soon as it was available, and I wanted to test. There was so much negative press about this, for good reason. And I just wanted to figure out, honestly, hey, is this a scam? Is this a ripoff? What is this? Now, this card is widely available for $299 at just about every retailer. And if you really look, you can find them for even cheaper than that, which kind of puts into perspective where this card should be sold at, like as a MSRP versus what it actually was released at. So I guess the other thing I want to answer with this is this card really as bad as everyone on the internet is screaming that it is? So I guess let's get into some results here and see. In Steel Nomad, we have an average score of 3151, which is the highest score yet, showing modern tech equals higher scores generally. In Time Spy, we get an average of 2854 with an average of 139 FPS. Okay, that's fourth. That doesn't make sense based on the whole modern tech equals higher scores statement that I just made. But I'm sure, this is going to perform. The rest of the system. So now we have the antagonist of this video, the whole reason I started making this video in the first place, which was the 5060. And right out of the gate, I bought this card as soon as it was available, and I wanted to test. There was so much negative press about this, for good reason. And I just wanted to figure out,
what
honestly,
Aces
hey,
build?
is this a scam? Is this a ripoff? What is this? Now, this card is wide.
You like that aqua?
Widely available for $299 at just about every retailer. And if you really look, you can find them for even cheaper than that, which kind of puts into perspective where this card should be sold at, like as a MSRP versus what it actually was.
This was the case that I wanted back in the day. It just looked so cool. It was impractical as hell, but it looked cool.
And folks, internet equality is more important than ever, as I learned this weekend when the interwebs tried to swallow me whole. But I am proud to say that I got lodged in its throat and it hacked me back up like a hastily chewed chicken wing. This is Who's Attacking Me Now?
released at. So I guess the other thing I want to answer with this is this card really as bad as everyone on the internet is screaming that it is? So I guess let's get into some results here and see. In Steel Nomad, we have an average score of 3151, which is the highest score yet, showing modern tech equals higher scores generally. In Time Spy, we get an average of 2854 with an average of 139 FPS. Okay, that's fourth. That doesn't make sense based on the whole modern tech equals higher scores statement that I just made. But I'm sure, this is going to perform much better in the rest of these. Anyways, in Cyberpunk 2077 RT off, we are at 107 FPS, which is all the way out in front. But as soon as you turn frame gen and ray tracing on, this card is only ahead of the B580 and the 3060 with an average FPS of 102, which is third place. When you have these technologies that this card is sold on turned off, it performs better than when they're on. I don't know, that's just weird in that hey, this technology is supposed to make these things faster and more smooth. Guess not. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 5060 is dead last. Like actually dead last. Literally 20 FPS behind all the rest of the cards. It's the same settings. Nothing is like different between the computer, but like it's dead last. In Black Myth Wukong with RT off and no frame gen, we're all the way back out in first with an average of 105 and lows at 66. When you turn frame gen and RT on, we are sitting at 84 and 54, which is your average and lows, which again, we're back in third place, which I would expect this card to be performing better. Should be better. In Red Dead Redemption 2, I was hoping again for numbers that kind of made sense, but with an average FPS of 96, which is somewhat high, and lows down at 44, this card came in fourth. This again is one of those situations like the B580 where playing and actually going from that high number down to that low number is going to be actually jarring. You're going to have stuttering and you're going to be like, what is going on? Something was wrong with my computer. And that's never the experience you want to have when you're trying to play a game, right? Then we get on to our AI image generation. The thing this card was actually designed, built around, and sold for Blackwell. That's it. This is the end-all be-all when it comes to AI stuff. It came in second. It's behind the last generation card that's basically the same card with a different GPU. The average time was 207 seconds, and the average iterations per second was 185. The average iterations was 1.875. It's like, how does the old card that's supposed to be worse at AI stuff than this perform better? Like, it shouldn't. That's where it's at. In Dune Awakening, there was literally, again, there was no difference between this and the other cards. The 30 series, the 40 series, and 50 series, they perform exactly the same. If you told me I was playing on the 3060, I'd have believed you. It feels exactly the same, which I guess is the point of the 30 series card. No matter which generation you have, since ray tracing and the RTX like architecture has existed, they just want you to have a similar experience across all of them.
Like, realistically, between all of these thus far, I don't think, if I really put it to you, I don't think anyone would be able to tell me the difference between the cards, except for the B580 just getting going. Because I do believe the B580, like I said, I don't think the drivers have been certified for this game yet. But I think any game that's been out more than a month will run fine on that card. On all of these cards, really. Like, I'll say this, like, without, like, actually any bias or, like, malintent. If you can get a 3060 Ti, there is no reason to upgrade it to a 4060 Ti or a 5060. Literally zero reason. Because this 3060, which is a base model, this regular old 3060, performed just as well as both of the other cards. Like a 3080 is better than any of these cards that we've tested today. Even the one I'm testing right now. Like, there's zero reason. Like, legitimately, I don't see any reason to buy any of these cards. If you have the option to buy the 3060 Ti, get that. If you can get the 4060 Ti within $20 of the 3060 Ti, buy that. The 5060 is like there's no reason to buy this card unless it drops like another $50. The B580 is the most compelling value, is because Intel is still putting money into the ecosystem and saying, hey, yes, we released this card, but we're going to continue to release updates and upgrades for it as far as drivers and performance stuff is concerned. Nvidia's like, hey, you bought your 5060, good luck. And the 6750 XT that we started off with, again, if I put a gun to someone's head, they'd have no clue. They wouldn't be able to tell me, hey, this is this card, this was this card, just based on the performance. They are so close with one another. Like, even my benchmark stuff showed that. Like, it's just wild how close these cards are together in performance. Like, not just in synthetic benchmarks, but in actual use case. But even the AI, if you look at the charts that I posted, like, the AI difference in iterations per second and how long it takes to actually render what I asked it to render, there's less than 2 seconds difference. When you get to economy of scale, sure, if you're rendering 100,000 images, you'll save 20 minutes, right? Like, great. But in day-to-day use, the people who are buying these cards aren't going to be doing that. So if you can get a 3060 Ti, buy a 3060 Ti. If you can get the 69 or the 6750 XT, buy that. If you can get a B580, buy that. There's a little bit of work you have to do for the AI, but I can't justify a 5060. I was hoping to come to like a different conclusion after playing all of these, but like I can't justify it because the performance difference is so small. Like in actual use, not just in, like I said, the synthetic benchmarks. And it's crazy. Like, I've spent, we're up to 15 hours testing these cards. Like, just straight, actively playing a single game, looking for performance differences. We had one hiccup with a card that is still in its infancy, but the rest of them, like I said, you can't tell the difference. You literally can't. Look, if you want to legitimately do 720p at 60 hertz, but like, for the price point these things are at, the 5060 is overpriced. It legitimately is. If the card was $50 less, it'd be a good value. If you can get a 4060 Ti for the same cost as a 5060, 100% buy the 4060 Ti. If you can get a 3060 Ti for the same cost, 100% buy. If you can get any of the cards today that I've tested for lower than the MSRP of a 5060, buy it. It is suspiciously quiet in my living room right now.
The price to performance on this card was 91%. It was, at time of purchase, the most expensive and came average third place across the board. There are things that this card is advertised to do better that it just doesn't, and it should. Sure, that may be a driver thing. NVIDIA's have a lot of problems with their drivers over the past 6 months. It might be a Windows thing. The build that I'm on in Windows might just be problematic for this card and these drivers. But if you're an average person in this situation with that same setup, on that same build, your life is going to suck and you're going to wonder why you spent the money on this, especially if you're upgrading from like a 30 card. Like, let's say you're upgrading from a 3060 to this. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. What actually is there to justify that upgrade that you just made? So I highly recommend, before just blindly buying this card, just because it is the newest thing from NVIDIA in your price bracket, you consider buying the 4060 Ti, or you consider buying the last card of this comparison, the RX 6750 XT. The RX 6750 XT was added pretty late into this process because I had trouble finding this card. And the reason I had trouble finding this card is because apparently, if you know what the capabilities of that card is, and you know how much it sold for when new, if you're seeing it for under that price, you're just gonna buy it and put it in something. Because, so it's a 12 gig card available for under $350. It's gonna be hard to come by, just straight up. So this card wasn't even in the radar for actually competing well in this showdown at all for me. And as we go through this, you're gonna hear the numbers and you're gonna get some takeaways from this based on some of the things I say. And there's one point that stood out to me about this whole thing, and we'll kind of run through that when we get towards the end. So in Steel Nomad, we had an average score of 2349, and in Time Spy, an average score of 21219, with an average FPS of 141, which is better than the 5060, which is newer and costs more than what I paid for this card. In Cyberpunk 2077, with ray tracing off, we are seeing 96 FPS, which puts this card in third, and with ray tracing and frame gen on, we're getting 140 FPS, which is surprisingly in second place. I was expecting the scores for this to be lower, so the fact that it does kind of pop up in second place just illustrates how much work AMD has put into getting their cards performant and optimized to work with games that people are actually out there playing. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 6750 XT comes in third again with an average of 182 FPS. In Black Myth Wukong with RT off and no frame gen, we're getting an average of 89 FPS and lows at 70 FPS. With ray tracing and frame gen on, we're sitting at 96 and lows of 82, which is second place again. In Red Dead Redemption, this trend continues with a score of 118 average with lows of 52, which the lows, I want to say, are going to be jarring if you're coming all the way down from 118, but if you're playing at 1080p 60, then you're barely going to see any movement there. So the lows aren't going to feel as painful. It's when you start getting below the 40, below 30, that's when you really, really feel it. Now, this is where this card kind of falls short for the context of this video. And I ran into issue after issue after issue trying to get stability matrix running correctly on this card, even though it is compatible. The crux of the issue is that it's compatible in Linux, it's not compatible in Windows. All of the rest of the tests that I ran were done in Windows for all the other cards, so I wasn't going to make an exception for this card. So while once I did get it into Linux and I started running Stability Matrix in Linux, it was doing exactly as well as you expected, on par with the 4060 Ti, and definitely outpunching the 5060. For the context of this test, I had to give this card a DNF, just because I couldn't generate results in Windows to put on my charts. So moving on to Dune Awakening. This is where my mind was really changed about this card. It put out some of the highest consistent FPS and had the most detail when actively playing through the game. From area to area, when things were loading in, it stayed the sharpest, and I never really saw anything that stood out to me as, so is that blurry? Is that not sharp enough? It never really crossed my mind. It never was an issue where I was having random pop-ins like I was having with some of the other cards, specifically the B580. So I don't honestly know why I was expecting a card that retailed for $550 to perform poorly in this game. But my general perception was that it would. And in all honesty, it was the smoothest experience I had playing Dune Awakening on this build out of all of the cards. The price to performance value for this card is at 90%, which is middle of the road by all accounts. But in every single test, it stayed middle of the road. The highs weren't super high, but the lows weren't super low. Meaning that the average experience I had across the board with this card was the smoothest. It was the most stable from start to finish. And I think that's what you're looking for with a video card. When you're actively using it and you're actively playing, you don't want to have these giant jumps up to super high numbers and then come crashing back down when you end up in a situation where the game is trying to render something that is out of what its capabilities are. It's got 12 gigs of memory. It is, again, at time of purchase, it was cheaper than the 5060, and it's the only real option that jumps out as far as stability, memory, and overall capabilities. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to put this in a computer in my house, and I'm going to use it, and I'm not going to have any regrets because it's stable, it's solid, and like overall, I enjoyed using this card, and it's the one I'd recommend, and it's the one that came in first based off of the highs and lows and price to performance and everything. So let's wrap this up. After spending a week doing testing and spending 15 straight hours playing on these cards, honestly, I can't say that the 5060 is a bad card. It's not a video card that's going to stop you from playing video games or prevent you from playing titles at 1080p. What I can say is that when they first announced this card, the price that it was being advertised at didn't make sense at all. There are better cards that offer the same performance for less money. Now that the prices come down on the card, and if this card gets down to, say, $270, sure, it's a card that I end up recommending because that would put it cheaper than all of the other cards that I bought and less expensive than even the 3060 that we're running here. So at that point, you're getting better technology and you're getting a newer card. You're going to end up having a better experience playing at that point. My whole thing with this is NVIDIA had the opportunity to offer the gaming community a bone with this card. A video card that 80% of people are going to end up using, and they will use for years until they really start upgrading their hardware or it's not something that's coming in a pre-build. They had the opportunity to pour a little bit of water on the fire that they created with their pricing for the 50 series card, and they didn't. So that being said, is the 5060 a ripoff? No. Is it a good value? No. Should you buy something else for the money? Yeah, for sure. All I can say is when you're looking for a video card, don't settle. Keep looking. You can find some crazy deals out there on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist. People are selling computers that aren't working all the time, that have great components, that everything else in the computer might be working all the time, that have great components, that everything else might. Computers that aren't working all the time, that have great components, that everything else in the computer might be dead, but the video card is working fine, and you can just take that video card out, slot it into your computer, and then sell the rest of the working components. That is definitely a thing. The thing that I hope we don't see, and it's a worrying trend because video card manufacturers are beholden to their shareholders, is a day where this hobby that we all love and enjoy, which is gaming on PCs, building PCs, becomes like truly a rich man's
Yeah, I
game,
bet.
where the entry-level cost for a computer, no matter what you're putting into it, is $1,500 or more. because that's a world where we are given fewer and fewer options, and we end up just getting what people are saying is what we need versus what we want. And the idea of that really, really sucks. So hopefully, with the next generation of these cards across the board from Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA, we see a little bit of a more aligning with the reality of what people can afford. Like, I'm not talking about the 90 series cards. Those are always going to be expensive. They're always going to be hard to compete with for all manufacturers, and their cost very quickly gets justified by their capability. What I'm talking about is your 70 series cards coming down in price, your 60 series cards coming down in price, and, you know, maybe making the 50 series cards what it should be, which is just a low power, plug it in, doesn't need external power kind of idea for people who buy these bare bones computers from HP, Dell, Lenovo, and they don't have a video card but they want to put one in. That's what the 50 card should be, nothing else. That all being said, buy used. Find the best thing you can for under your budget, and don't be afraid to sometimes take a chance by doing bids and not getting something right now at this moment. There's always going to be stuff out there for you to buy. And worst case scenario, you're buying whatever the latest card is for your budget. And based off all of our testing, you're not going to be disappointed. You just might be overpaying. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this style of video for me. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. If you could leave comments below, let me know if I did a terrible job, if I did an okay job. If you'd want to see more stuff like this, you can drop them below, like I said, in the comments. You can hop on our Discord. You can come to my stream. I stream daily from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard to about 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard every single day on Twitch and on YouTube. I run a business, Bradenton PC Repair. You can just click wherever I put the button to get some more information on that. And the whole reason that my channel exists is to answer questions. Doesn't matter what part of a computer you have questions about, what your level of knowledge is when it comes to either computer repairs, computer building, gaming setups. My goal is to be a place where you can come, where my community is going to have someone.
Well, one of the things that I've already tested it a little bit on a TV. I haven't had any issues with any of the games that I'm playing currently. Yeah, I'm going to be here. And like worst case scenario, I can just use DisplayPort to HDMI if I need to. I haven't had any issues yet, but I mean that is definitely something that could be a possibility that I would have to take into account. But for most people, I don't think it would necessarily be an issue. That's strange. Yeah, I used to do that. Thank you, Emily. And I'm not going to be doing 4K on anything, because it's not a 4K video card by any stretch. Did you hear what I said, Emily?
Question. We have people that are super knowledgeable about vintage stuff.
Yeah,
About
not so much.
server stuff, about AMD, about Intel, about NVIDIA. They all have different pieces of knowledge, which makes my community so great. And we're always looking for more people to join that community to help grow it and to help make the space that is my community the best it can possibly be and help it become, you know, a place that people can go to.
I would still make this statement. It's the best video card for under $350.
And trust that they're going to get a legitimate and right answer.
I answered your question, Emily.
If that's something you're interested in, swing by, check it out. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Everyone have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked that video, make sure you hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Right.
I stream daily on...
All right. That is the longest video I think I've ever made. It took the longest to make. I gotta make a decent thumbnail. And go from there. Probably need to make some shorts from it too. Okay. I'm not selling you my card. No. That's sure. But there would be other cards I would want to look at that price range just before I make a decision. Alright, video file. I got a 4060 Ti I'll sell you for, was it 320 or whatever I sold it for? It's the last card I got.
Yeah, we're
Because they're a hell of a lot cheaper. That's why. I mean, like right here, perfect example. 280 bucks versus 370 bucks. Like save 100 bucks, get basically the same performance. Yeah, used. Nothing wrong with used computer hardware. Yeah, I disagree. Because if you only have $300 to spend, then where are you going to get that other money from? Like, you come into this conversation, it's like, hey, I got $300 to spend on a video card, and you walk up to me and say, spend $500. How does that work? Like, budgets exist for a reason, which is the whole point of this video that's rendering right now, is if you have a budget of $350 or less for a video card, what's your best bang for buck? Right, but if you're building a computer right now, or if your video card died and you have $350 and your options are literally, I don't have a working computer versus I buy a used video card, what are you going to do? You just go, I guess you just don't, you don't have a computer anymore. Sucks to be you. Doesn't really hold water there. CR3052. What do we got left here? Do you work for like Nvidia or AMD, my guy? Because you sure are shilling, man. buy new. Get out of here. You're misinformed. Because if you think that you should spend full money on something that gets worse performance than the last generation of itself because it's new, that seems like a very large, misstep. And if you're actually going to give that as actual consumer advice, then you got some things to learn. Because all of the testing that we did and over the past, month, clearly shows that the 5060 is not worth $350. It's not worth $300. It's worth maybe $200. So why not just buy something else for less money? Makes sense to me. It is easy. I feel confident. Dogs, Emily. They actually like you. Correct. Xbox Series X isn't, the worst thing you'd be gaming on. Could be gaming on an Xbox One, right? Yeah, that's true. And nothing wrong with the PS5. PS5 technically outperforms the Series X. It has more exclusives. How do you know it'll last longer? It's only been in the market for a couple months. What if there's some inherent problem with it that hasn't been exposed yet? Whereas you have these other cards that have been in the market for a year, 2 years, and they're not just dying left and right. And what regular person is going to overclock these video cards? Not all of them. Hey, I think. All right, here. Well, let's end this PlayStation versus Xbox debate. If you're playing games and you're having fun, that's all that matters. The console doesn't actually have that much of a bearing on the video games you're playing. As long as you're playing games and having fun. There's no better. I know. Better is a subjective based on the question that's asked. That is 100% true. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks for the blessing. Yep, that's it exactly. You like what you like. So one area that I would say, well, honestly, how do I put this into words? The amount of games a platform has should have some bearing on whether or not you purchase the system. As long as the games and the style of games you are looking to play are available on that platform. Once you own a platform, the quantity of games you own on that platform suddenly makes purchasing decisions going forward more important. Like if you bought into the Nintendo ecosystem and you have 50 Switch 1 games, right? Suddenly switching to Xbox or PlayStation and complaining that you don't have cross compatibility, you're definitely looking at the wrong thing there. But going from Xbox to PlayStation, the same thing can be said. But that doesn't diminish the quantity of games both of them have, as more and more games are being released cross-platform. The other thing is with the expansion of Steam going everywhere, and you know, Steam being like suddenly loaded on some of these other consoles, like the Steam OS and just the Steam game libraries in general. It's crazy to think that we are now in a period of time where you could buy a PlayStation. Like, this does not exist yet, but I don't see a reason why it won't. You buy a PlayStation, and then you install Steam on your PlayStation, and then you play Xbox games that you purchased on Steam. Like, that that is a thing that can happen, and that is hilarious to me. No, Lee, he's right, because if Nintendo determines that your Switch 2 was purchased with malicious intent, they can just lock you out of it, which is kind of BS. Oh, right. No, I agree, Master, but it's like you can do that now. You can it just works in a different way, right? You can buy PlayStation games and play them on an Xbox. You can buy PlayStation games, play them on Steam. It just depends on how they're released and when they're released and all that. Yeah. Yep. I agree. This giant package from Amazon. It's a bag that's full of cables. Oh. Yeah, well, let's be honest. 90% of people are never going to own a Ferrari. They've already bricked devices. For using, what was it, the emulated cartridges or whatever? Or that for a cartridge that was used to make copies of a ROM? You do in modern gaming. If I currently have a 3050 on a budget, that sentence doesn't make sense. In modern gaming, I currently have RTX 3050 8GB card on a budget. Get a 12 gigabyte card 40 series. Can you rewrite that a little bit and tell me how much you'd be willing to spend? Yep, Emily, you're gonna have. Well, I mean, if you're on a budget, that's fine. It's just not saying what the budget is makes it more complicated. You'd like to stick with an RTX series on a budget card, maybe 330. Oh, it's fine. 330. I mean, you saw the conclusion that I came to, which is the RX 6750 XT. But honestly, I mean, you could get this 9060. If you want to stick with Intel, though, or Intel, my brain is not awake. If you want to stick with NVIDIA, then it's going to be a 4060 Ti. Because on eBay, they're going for right around the $200 or the $300 mark. My brain is not working. There you go, right there. $284. That's not a bad price. Sure, it'd be nice if it had more memory. There is a 12 gigabyte variant. No, I don't think there is. I got stuff to do. Okay, let's be real here. That looks better than that. Ooh. I don't give a shit. Honestly. What's wrong with low profile cards? What specific point do you think is going to catch me a lot of flack, Master? Are they not? I even said they're hard to find at that price. I specifically said in the video they're hard to find because when people see them, they buy them. They're still going to be out there. Just like I keep finding these computers for under $300. And when I do, I buy them. Because people don't know. All right. Well, there's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. 5. What were you looking for, Master? There's a bunch of them. Not one. There you go. I'll buy this one. And I don't care if I catch flack. These, like, I just. This is, I did the test. I came to an opinion. That's the idea. What do you mean, Emily? I sell video cards. Try resetting the BIOS. Yeah. Do the CMOS reset. Look up your motherboard, the instructions on how to reset the CMOS. Yeah, it sounds like something's up with the motherboard then. Yes. Month-old motherboard. Well, I've had motherboards dead right out of the box. Well, if it's a warranty thing, you can actually have them ship you one. RMA it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, fastest option is like find a store and grab another motherboard. The other option would be what would be the best option? It's like the RMA, but if you bought it from an online store, you're gonna have to ship it back. You're gonna be waiting regardless, unless you can just go buy one. Yeah, I'm still waiting on that RMA for that video card. I do believe, yeah. Price is wrong, right? Unfortunately, it's what it looks like. What is this? Zotic? No. No, Lee. No. You literally have been watching me work on this video for a month. And you know the answer to that question is no. If you know, why did you send it to me? Hey, I finally found a good meme from Master. I like that mini card though. That's pretty good. I have never played the craft. I gotta go pressure wash my driveway. What do you mean? What about non-TIs? For parts. For parts. Okay. Okay, Master. I would buy that card. Good morning. Hi. I'm coming home. I need to pressure wash the driveway so the HOA doesn't fine us $1,000. Are you going anywhere? Where are you going? Okay. Did you see did you see my text? Good. Yeah, I know, I heard that. Mm-hmm. Ooh, look at this. Look at this nice thumbnail image. That was completely and utterly generated by ChatGPT. I did nothing. It's surprisingly okay. Like, actually surprisingly okay. The words are even spelled right. I don't know what the fuck this is, though. Okay. All right. Look at that. It's an air-cooled box. Look at that. I asked a simple question. Should I go home early? The 8-ball says yes. I'm going to go home early. It looks like I'm going to have to pay someone to actually do my sign. All of the people that were supposed to help me are not helping me. So I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do it. Because I want to, Emily. Which reminds me. Real VNC viewer. Hell yeah, man. I'm remotely connecting into a Raspberry Pi. I love how it's got a low voltage warning and it's going directly into a 350 watt power supply. Like, what? Explain that to me. How is that low voltage? might have to remake my LED sign. Which has been up there for a very long time. But it is not working correctly for some reason, and I don't know why. Alright, I got it partially working. It's good enough for now. So, alright, I will, I gotta take it down, work on it. There's probably some upgrades and stuff I can do to it. So, alright, we'll see you later.